Hello everyone and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I am so excited to welcome back to our program Omegia Keeys. She's back in Mississippi. Last time I talked to her, the last conversation you all saw, I actually was in Atlanta, Georgia. We were talking to her about her film she was doing at that point. She's in Mississippi today. She's released a new book. We're going to talk to her about that, Brown Girl's Guide to Good Credit. But also she has a new documentary that she's working on as well. Omegia, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much. It's been a long time, 10 years. So
10 years.
We're still going.
Still going, and you continue to grow, continue to expand. I mean, there have been so many things you've done. You and I first met because of the books. Mm-hmm. You've done television, you've done movies, you've done your own projects. Now this year, you're doing everything. You're doing the books and you're doing a documentary. How does it feel to see all that hard work paying off for you?
It's actually overwhelming because, you know, when you're growing up and you're thinking about what you want to be in life, this wasn't one of those things. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. So, like, for me doing this, and I mean, I really love it. It's really, you know, my calling for it. I mean, I just, every day I'm like, how am I even given these gifts to do this? But if I don't do something, I still feel like I'm not doing enough. Like, I feel like I could just still be doing so much more. And eventually I'll get to that point where I'm like, I've finally done enough.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that because I am of the firm belief that all of us have gifts. We all have something we've been given. Not all of us use it. Not all of us use it in a way that we should. When did you first realize those gifts of being able to not only to tell stories in print, but also on film?
I actually realized for writing, it came to me when I was young, but I didn't know that I can like do anything for it. Just anytime we were in class and they were like, okay, we need to make up a story, and everybody turned to me like, you know, you're sitting in the corner, everybody's head just turned and look at you real hard as far as that goes. But when it came to the movies, that was 2013. Like, I just went on the show as an extra just to be doing something like, okay, let me see what it's all about. But the moment I stepped on there and see how everything falls into place as a writer, it's like, okay, it needs to be written. You need the script in order for it to even get to that point. So I finally saw what I wanted to do because it all fell together. Like, I just loved it. That's when it came to me.
Yeah. And you definitely have not stopped. You know, a lot of people, when they kind of look at their careers and look at the things that they've done, you know, they say, you know what, things aren't moving fast enough, and they give up on it. What do you think has kind of kept you consistent? Because one thing I've known about you over the past decade is that you have not only been consistent, but you've expanded on your original gift. So what do you think has been the key for you in doing that and not allowing time or the lack of, you know, time to stop you?
Well, anytime I have doubt, there is something that comes along immediately that shows me why it's needed. Like, say for example, this documentary I'm working on. I'm like, you know, me and my little activist self, I thought I was like pushing a little bit hard. Mm-hmm. But the moment I had that doubt, immediately that day something big came on the news, which is the Charlottesville incident. Mm-hmm. So like anytime I have a doubt or anytime I feel like, you know, because I'm funding these films out my own pocket. Mm-hmm. So anytime I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna have enough money, something to pull through every single time, whether it's me getting out there, you know, working hard to get it, or, you know, somebody making a donation, or a book selling that I've, you know, written a long time ago and completely forgot about and get, you know, royalties from that. Something always pulls through, and so that's what keeps me going.
Well, you are here in Mississippi, of course. We're glad we are able to sit down with you. You didn't come just to see me, though. You came because you are doing this documentary. Talk to us about that. I mean, what is it that kind of led you to want to look at this journey from Jim to James Crow?
Well, what led me to look at the journey was because there are so many people, you know, that are in actual denial that there is a problem in the United States. And it's not just white people that are in denial. It is some black people like, oh, well, if y'all just quit doing stuff that, you know, nothing will happen. Oh, if you just dress right, if you just do this, then nothing will happen to you while you're going. When that's so not the case. There's so many cases of people on their way to work, you know, they're doing things. And I know I've had, from my own personal examples growing up, I went to a private school, but I was discriminated against so much there, not by my classmates, but by the teachers there. And these are people that are supposed to, you know, to teach you. So I wanted, when things started happening, when Black Lives Matter started, I knew I could not get, you know, to those cities immediately when things were going on to stand up in the crowds, nor did I want to be somebody in the crowd. I wanted to use, you know, my voice and my gifts to show a story about racism in America. How, you know, people say slavery was so long ago, Jim Crow was so long ago, but it's not. James is the refined Jim. James is now wearing this suit and is now up in these corporate offices, is now in charge, and they still alive. Just like some of the people that I've interviewed. I interviewed somebody that was they knew their grandparents that were slaves. Mm-hmm. And they're still alive. They're in their 90s. Mm-hmm. So you're talking to these people that they're just one or two generations, and they actually knew the people that were still slaves. Right. So this person, you know, their grandparent was still slave. They knew them, you know, growing up. This person lived all the way through Jim Crow, and now told me that what they're seeing today is worse than some of the stuff that they've lived with in Jim Crow.
Wow. You know, one of the ways that we've kind of stayed connected with your project, actually I found out about the project, was through social media. You've shared some clips of some of the interviews you've done. You even released a trailer for this. What has surprised you the most about the conversations that you've had so far?
What surprised me the most is that because I've interviewed people on like basically all sides of, you know, because it's going to take all of us to get through. But I've actually did interview somebody who was a racist and was comfortable with it. So that then, so it's one thing when somebody's on social media to call you a nigger. It's one thing when somebody's driving down the car to call you a nigger and they're gone. But when it's in your face and, you know, the person's like, yeah, we own slaves, so what? And just smiling like it is no big deal. That's what has shocked me the most, that part right there. That, you know, because I wanted to believe that, you know, if somebody actually truly sat down and talked to you, that, you know, and they see you as a person, but somebody like that doesn't really see you as a person, in order to, you know, you're like your dog talking to them. Mm-hmm. So that's what shocked me the most, because I really, just because of the type of person that I am, I really truly hope that by speaking with someone that will click in their head. But it didn't.
Yeah. And I think that's what, you know, we'll be able to see in this. You shared something with me during this visit that I think our audience will appreciate, that you went into this with one idea, and now because of the conversations, you've kind of evolved that. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I was going to just make a feature film from Jim to James Crow, but now I realized that it is so much bigger. I would not do it service. I would do, you know, injustice to it if I tried to cram it all up into a feature film. So now I'm breaking it down up into a series so we can really discuss, you know, the different things, the different topics about racism within there, and also like how we can move forward in the different things that we can do. Like, people need to understand that, you know, back in the 80s, black women were labeled the welfare queens. Mm. But they just glossed over the fact that welfare was started by FDR. And it was started after the Depression, and it was started only for white women, to help white women and their families. But when it transitioned over to, you know, to black families, it was all these stipulations. You can't be married. You can't have a boyfriend in the house. You can't do this, to remove the black man from out of the household. And then all of a sudden the person is, oh, you need the welfare. You're using welfare, you know, to glorify yourself. You're doing this, and that off of welfare. If you actually seen what people get for welfare, there is nothing queenly about it. They're getting pennies. They're getting scraps. And a lot of people are actually working that are on welfare, but yet and still, you know, we get the label, even though most black women aren't the ones that's actually on it. There's more white women on it than black women, but we get that stigma, we get the label. So I just want to really go into detail about, you know, those, you know, specific things, and the contrast, you know, between then and now. The fact that when people say Jim Crow was so long ago, those people are still living today.
Right. Exactly, and I think that's the thing for a lot of us. Now, you have been on a literal journey as you've been going throughout this project, from James Crow. Talk to us about the internal journey. How has it changed you being a part of this?
Oh, it's in order for me to even be a part of this, because you have to take yourself up out of it and let the people tell their stories, because my experience is not like Cyrus's experience. You know, just because, you know, people have called me all sorts of names and everything, that doesn't mean that that's what you've experienced. And so I can't put through what I've been through on you, but I can make it so people can understand that there's different facets to racism. Yeah, everybody doesn't experience the same. And you know, because like a lot of things I see online, like, how have you been oppressed? They think that just because you haven't been a slave and you're not getting hit with a dang whip, that you haven't been oppressed, and they try to flip that and use that for things. It was a big incident last week. My son decided to do a photo shoot, and in that photo shoot, because he used to serve in the military, and we both had a lot of racism pushed on us while we were both in the military. It hurt me, because this is my son, and he's mirroring exactly what I went through, because I hope by the time he joined the military that he wouldn't have to go through it. Unfortunately, he did. So he chose, since he's no longer in the military, he did a photo shoot, and in the picture he's actually standing on the flag. But it represents so much more, and he called it patriotic distress. This photo was shared hundreds of times in military groups and other groups, and these people are saying my son doesn't have a right to show his to express himself. He has no right to the Constitution. But some of the things that they're saying, wrap them up in the flag and burn it. So you can't stand on the flag, but you want somebody wrapped up in the flag and burnt. Like, how crazy is that? Like, you're doing, like, so by, he's disrespecting the flag, so disrespect the flag more. It's like, that's, so when I'm looking at that, because that's all a part of, this project as well. So when you're looking at that, like, I was livid, I was angry, but I had to remove myself, from that, in order to try to figure out what the root of it was. And the crazy part is, a lot of people actually started inboxing him and talking crazy, but through some of those conversations, he actually got to some people and like explain, okay, why he did it. Some people, they're just not gonna get it. But if we could reach that one person, that's how you start to effect change.
Well, you actually deserve a lot of credit for the conversations that you're having. But speaking of credit, you have a new book out as well. Great segue there. Brown Girl's Guide to Good Credit. Okay, another thing you talked about on social media. Why was this a book you felt like? Because we've known you for a lot of different things, domestic seduction and playmate. I mean, why was this the next project you wanted to do?
Well, because I wanted to show people that despite everything, one thing you can have is having good credit. And how, it's crazy, like, because credit before, it was the Wilford brothers started this whole system of credit. When immigrants came over, they would check the people's belongings and see what they had, and that determined what type of credit you have. Well, during this time, it was the late 1800s. So black folks didn't have, how are you checking somebody black credit worthiness? And, so things change. So now we're a number. And nobody can, if you have good credit, you can basically get a lot of things, that you want. And that's basically how I've been able to do a lot of things that I do with having good credit. And so, but in the black community, the unfortunate thing is because our parents or whatever didn't have those opportunities, it's not a generationally taught thing to us about credit. So oftentimes, you get to a certain age and your credit is jacked up because you never knew about it. So it's about, I specifically did it, for brown girls, is so that to know, at a younger age and through adults about credit. And yes, we deserve to have credit, and it's not hard like you think it is, just to be taught about it.
So make sure you all head over to Amazon.com and get that book for yourself, Brown Girl's Guide to Good Credit. How can they stay connected with you, Omegia, and kind of keep up with the updates for the film project?
Okay, you can follow me on any social media as Mimi Keeys, Mimi Omegia Keeys. For the movie, it is From Jim to James Crow on both Facebook and Instagram. Yay, I'm good up on that again. But those are the ways that you can stay in touch for both of it. There's a trailer out there. I'm actually taking donations for the film because like I said, I'm funding this out of my pocket. this is me and my son. I'm so glad I have the opportunity to actually, bring my son along, on this journey of like, can you imagine, a mom and son on this journey going from state to state, talking to different people? Because, I'm in my 40s, so I have the older eyes looking at it, and then you have someone in their 20s, the different things, that we're seeing. So hopefully, it's going to be, the younger generation that changes things.
Right.
So, just happy.
Well, I'm happy to have a chance to sit down with you again. Congratulations on all the great things. Thank you so much for allowing myself to be a part of the documentary. I'm excited about what's going to come from that. And we thank you, our audience, for tuning in to this edition of Cyrus Webb Presents.